If selling art was just about talent, then the most skilled artists would be the ones making the most money. But that's not how it works. I see artists spending thousands of dollars on courses, perfecting every tiny detail of their work, waiting for the day when they'll be good enough to start selling. But no matter how skilled they get, the sales don't come. Meanwhile, someone else with half the experience and a tenth of the technical ability is out there making a living. And it's not because they're lucky, it's because selling art is about way more than just being good at it. So if you've been wondering why your art isn't selling, even though your skills are there, I'm going to break down what's likely missing from your strategy and exactly how to fix it. Most artists think their biggest problem is that they're not selling enough art, but honestly, that's not really the issue. The real problem is that not enough of the right people are even seeing their work in the first place. You could have the most incredible artwork in the world, but if only a handful of people ever see it, how can they buy it? And if it's the wrong people, people who aren't art buyers, who don't collect original work, then it doesn't matter how talented you are. They're just not your audience. So how do you fix that? How do you actually get your work in front of people who want to buy it? First, you have to be where art buyers already are. And this is where a lot of artists go wrong. Most artists spend all their time marketing to other artists. They're posting in art groups, engaging with fellow creatives, and building connections with other painters or illustrators. And while that's great for community, it's not great for sales. Instead, you need to start putting your work where collectors, interior designers, and actual art buyers are looking. That might mean posting in home decor groups instead of art groups, engaging with high-end designers and gallery owners, or selling at fine art fairs where people are already shopping for original pieces. A lot of artists struggle because they're marketing to themselves. Instead of thinking like an artist, you have to start thinking like a collector. Where do your customers spend their time? That's where you need to be. The next thing is expanding your reach beyond just social media. If your entire marketing strategy is posting on Instagram and hoping for the best, you're going to struggle. Social media is unpredictable. It doesn't show your posts to all your followers. And engagement alone doesn't automatically lead to sales. So instead of relying on just one platform, you need to diversify. Email marketing, Pinterest, YouTube, even in-person networking. These all have a much longer lifespan than a single Instagram post. Think about it. A YouTube video can bring in new collectors years after you publish it, whereas a post on most other social media platforms disappears within hours. And an email newsletter sits in a person's inbox until they open it. Most importantly, stop relying on passive discovery. This is one of the biggest shifts I made in my own art business. I stopped waiting for people to find me, and I started putting my work directly in front of them. That means sending emails to past buyers when I release new work, direct messaging potential collectors on social media instead of waiting for them to come to me, and actively reaching out to get featured on the local news, get my art prints for sale in retail stores in my niche, or get my work featured on niche-related blogs. The artists who are making consistent sales aren't just hoping people will come across their work. They're making it easy for buyers to find them. So instead of asking, why aren't people buying, then start asking, how can I make sure the right people are seeing my work? Because when you start focusing on that, everything changes. Most artists assume that if someone likes their art, they'll take the next step and buy it. But here's the truth. People are more likely to take action if they're told exactly what to do next. Think about it. How many times have you seen something you loved online, thought, oh, I'd buy that, and then just kept scrolling, not because you didn't want it, but because you weren't prompted to take the next step, or maybe you just didn't want to take the time to figure out what that next step was. This happens all the time with art. Someone might absolutely love your work, but if they don't know how to buy it, they won't. And if they have to figure it out on their own, most of them just won't bother. That's why calls to action, also known as CTAs, are everything. When you tell people exactly what to do next, you remove the hesitation. You make it easy for them to go from, wow, I love this, to I need to buy this right now. And yet so many artists forget this. Too often I see artists post their work with captions like new painting or so excited to share this one, and then Nothing, no instructions, no direction, just hoping people will magically figure out what to do. But here's the thing, buyers don't want to figure it out. They want it to be effortless. If they have to click the link on your profile to then dig through a cluttered website to try to find the piece or message you just to ask if something is available, most of them will just move on. Instead, your posts need to be crystal clear about what step they should take next. If you want them to buy, tell them exactly where to go. And you need to make purchasing easy for them. Likewise, if you want them to engage, invite them to comment. If you want them to join your email list, give them the link and tell them exactly why they should. The clearer you make it, the better your results will be. Calls to action aren't just about selling, they're also about making your audience feel welcomed, engaged, and connected to your work. A lot of people hesitate to reach out to an artist because they don't know if the piece is still available or if they're serious enough to inquire. But when you openly invite them to take the next step, that hesitation disappears. It reassures them that yes, they should reach out. Yes, they are welcome to ask questions. And yes, you do want them to buy. No matter what kind of CTA you use, the key is to always give people something to do. Every time you post, ask yourself, what do I want my audience to do next? Do I want them to buy, join my list, engage in the comments, whatever it is, say it clearly. Because here's the thing, the easiest way to sell more art is simply to tell people how to buy it. The easiest way to grow your audience is to tell them how to stay connected. The easiest way to boost engagement is to invite them to participate. If you're not giving people clear next steps, you're losing potential buyers every single day. But the moment you start adding strong, confident CTAs to your posts, everything shifts. More engagement, more sales, more people actually taking action instead of just scrolling past your work. So next time you share your art, don't just post it and hope people figure it out. Tell them exactly what to do next. You'll be shocked at how much of a difference it makes. Next, we got to talk about pricing because I see a lot of artists get stuck on this. There's this idea that if your work isn't priced high, people won't take you seriously, that if you don't charge premium prices, you're somehow underselling yourself. But honestly, that's just not true. In fact, offering your art at a price that more people can afford can actually be a smarter way to build a successful art business. Instead of limiting yourself to a handful of buyers who can afford high-end originals, you're opening up your work to a much larger audience. And that means more people collecting your art, more people talking about it, and more people supporting you over time. When your art is priced accessibly, more people can buy it. Not everyone has the budget to drop thousands of dollars on an original painting, but that doesn't mean they don't love art. They want to support artists, they want to collect work that speaks to them, but they need a way to do it that fits their budget. And that brings me to another big benefit, building a collector base. Someone might start with a print because it's what they can afford right now, but later down the line, they might come back for an original. Selling art isn't just about a one-time transaction. It's about creating relationships with buyers, giving them an entry point to your work, and keeping them engaged for the long run. Another reason offering affordable options is not underselling yourself is because when done right, it actually increases your overall earnings. Think about it. Would you rather sell one original for $2,000 or sell 100 prints at $30 each? The second option not only makes more money, but it also puts your art into the hands of 100 different people instead of just one. That means more exposure, more word of mouth, and more chances for future sales. At the end of the day, the idea that you have to price your art high to be taken seriously is just a myth. There are plenty of successful artists selling prints at accessible prices, and their work is just as valued as those selling high-end originals. The art market is huge, and there's room for all price points. Offering prints at an affordable price isn't about devaluing your work. It's about making your art more accessible to people who genuinely love it. It's about growing your collector base, increasing your reach, and making more sales in the long run. So if you've been holding back from offering prints because you're worried it'll make your art seem less valuable, just know it won't. As long as you're presenting your work in a way that feels special, people will see it as special. And more importantly, they'll actually be able to own it and enjoy it. And that's what being a working artist is all about, getting your art into the hands of people who love it. I know a lot of artists don't like the idea of selling. It feels pushy, right? But here's what changed my perspective. Selling is just another skill, just like painting, just like drawing, just like sculpting. And like any skill, you can get better at it. Most successful artists spend just as much time on marketing as they do on creating. And I know that might sound frustrating. You just want to make art, right? But marketing isn't something that takes time away from your art. It's the thing that allows you to keep making art full time. And if you're not making enough sales, the key is direct outreach. Email marketing, personal messages to collectors, talking to people at art fairs. This is where the real money comes from. Because here's the thing, cold audiences are less likely to buy, but warm leads, people who already like your work, they're 3 times more likely to purchase. When I stopped passively waiting and started actively selling, my income completely changed. Also, I think it's worth pointing out the psychology behind what actually makes someone want to buy art. It's usually not about logic, it's mostly about emotion and the connection they feel to it. Now, some people might be buying an art print because they need a gift, but even in these situations, most of them aren't buying it because they need it. They buy it because it makes them feel something, and they hope the person they are giving it to will also feel something. And that's the key to selling more, getting potential customers to connect emotionally with your work. This is why storytelling is so powerful. When you share the inspiration behind a piece, the personal meaning, or even just your creative process, it adds an emotional layer that makes people want to buy. So don't just post a photo of your work and call it a day. Tell a story, make people feel something. Because when someone connects with your art on an emotional level, they are so much more likely to buy. If you want to make a living selling art, your goal isn't just to find new buyers, it's to keep the buyers you already have coming back. Here's the thing, getting a new collector is way harder than keeping an old one. But most artists don't do anything to nurture those relationships. They sell a piece, say thank you, and then move on. Meanwhile, the artists making real money are building a loyal collector base. It's simple, make people feel valued, send personal thank you messages, give them early access to new collections. The more appreciated a buyer feels, the more they'll want to support you. If you've been feeling stuck, it's time to ask yourself, are you just hoping people will find your work, or are you actually making sure they do? The artists making consistent sales aren't necessarily the best artists. They're the ones showing up, putting their work in front of the right people, marketing themselves, building relationships, and pricing in a way that makes sense for their audience. And honestly, these are things I wish I had figured out sooner. If I were starting my art business from scratch today, there are some very specific things I would focus on to actually make money. And trust me, they are not what most artists think. So if you want to avoid the biggest mistakes artists make when trying to sell their work, watch this next video. It'll save you time, frustration, and get you on the right path faster. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.